Welcome to This Explainer. If you're a true crime enthusiast, you are going to absolutely love this one. We are cracking open the ultimate cold case file on the only documented unsolved case of air piracy in the entire history of commercial aviation. It's a crazy story full of audacity, complete mystery, and an escape so perfectly executed that it literally transformed the way we all fly today. So let's just dive right into this top secret dossier, the unsolved case of D.B. Cooper. Here is our agenda for this investigation. We've got 1. The perfect skyjacking. 2. The mid-air vanishing act. 3. Cold case, the evidence. 4. Profiling the suspects. And 5. Changing aviation security forever. Section 1. The perfect skyjacking. Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. Let's transport ourselves right back to Thanksgiving Eve, November 24th, 1971. A man in a business suit and a black raincoat walks up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter in Portland. He pays cash for a simple one-way ticket for a quick 30-minute hop north to Seattle. He gave his name as Dan Cooper, though, because of a media mix-up later on, the world would forever know him as D.B. Cooper. He boarded a Boeing 727, took seat 18E in the very last row, and casually ordered a bourbon and 7-Up. Everything seemed completely, totally ordinary. But man, things escalated with terrifying speed. Look at this timeline. We go from a mundane boarding at 2:50 p.m. to a high-stakes hostage situation mid-flight. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper hands a note to the flight attendant sitting right behind him, Florence Schaffner. Now, she just thought it was a lonely businessman slipping her his phone number, so she dropped it into her purse without even looking at it. But Cooper leaned in and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." By 5:46 p.m., after circling to let the FBI scramble to meet his demands, the plane finally lands in Seattle, and miraculously, the passengers are released unharmed. He kicked off this massive crime with, honestly, a terrifying politeness. With just this neatly printed note and felt-tip pen, the legend was born. Once Schaffner sat down beside him, she asked to see the bomb. Cooper just calmly opened his attic to reveal a large battery attached with wires to 8 red cylinders. He then gave her his demands to take straight up to the cockpit. So what exactly did he want? $200,000 in negotiable American currency. To put that into perspective, that's equivalent to about $1.6 million today. And he wanted it paid entirely in unmarked $20 bills. But here is the absolutely brilliant part. He also demanded 4 parachutes, 2 front reserves and 2 back mains. By asking for multiple parachutes, he implied to the FBI that he might be taking a hostage with him when he jumped. This totally forced their hand. They had to provide fully functional gear because they couldn't risk giving him sabotaged equipment if an innocent crew member was going to use it.
Moving on to Section 2, the Mid-Air Vanishing Act, a daring escape. So after securing his massive ransom and those 4 parachutes on the ground in Seattle, Cooper let all 36 passengers go. The plane was quickly refueled, and Cooper ordered the remaining crew, just the pilots, a flight engineer and flight attendant Tina Mucklow, back up into the night sky for his highly orchestrated escape. Now look at these incredibly specific flight demands. This proves without a doubt that Cooper possessed deep, insider knowledge of aviation and the Boeing 727 itself. He demanded a course southeast toward Mexico City, but capped the maximum altitude at just 10,000 feet and insisted on an unpressurized cabin. Why? So he could actually breathe when he opened the door. He dictated a crazy slow airspeed of just 100 knots, keeping the wing flaps lowered to 15 degrees so the plane wouldn't stall out. And finally, the kicker. He demanded the aircraft take off with the aft exit door open and its rear air stair extended. That was a highly unique feature of the 727. After taking off, Cooper sent the last remaining flight attendant to the cockpit. He told her to close the curtain and absolutely not return. He was completely alone back there in the cabin. Then, at exactly 8:13 p.m., the crew felt a sudden drop in cabin pressure, and the aircraft's tail section pitched upward so hard the pilots had to rapidly correct their flight level. The FBI would later recreate this exact scenario by tossing a 200-pound sled out the back, proving that 8:13 p.m. was the precise moment Cooper, with all that money strapped to his body, leapt off those rear stairs into the freezing rain over southwest Washington. When the plane finally landed in Reno hours later, the cabin was completely empty. He vanished. Section 3. Cold case. The evidence, the physical clues. Okay, let's put our detective hats on. What do you actually leave behind when you vanish into thin air like that? This evidence board shows the wildly baffling clues investigators were left with.
On his seat, he left a black J.C. Penney clip-on tie. Decades later, electron microscopy revealed it contained microscopic particles of unalloyed titanium, bismuth, and antimony. Now, in 1971, pure titanium was super rare, meaning Cooper probably worked at a highly specialized aerospace facility, like Boeing maybe, or a chemical plant. He also left 8 Raleigh filter-tipped cigarette butts in the ashtray, but tragically, no fingerprints were found and the butts were actually destroyed before modern DNA testing could ever be used on them. Of the 4 parachutes, he left 2 behind, having cut cords from a non-functional dummy reserve chute, probably to tie the money bag shut. And finally, the most tantalizing clue of all. In 1980, a young boy actually found $5,800 of the deteriorating ransom money buried in the sand at Tina Bar along the Columbia River. The rest of the cash? Never seen again.
Section 4. Profiling the suspects, hunting a ghost. Over the 45-year span of their active investigation, the FBI processed over 1,000 serious suspects, trying desperately to match individuals to a very specific set of characteristics.
Based on the identical descriptions given by the flight attendants, the FBI painted a clear picture. This wasn't some common thrill seeker. This was a meticulously calm operator. Their profile targeted a man in his mid-40s, roughly 5'10" to 6 feet tall with an athletic build. He was intelligent, procedure-oriented. Because of his crazy specific knowledge of the 727's rear stairs and the parachute deployment, they suspected he might have been an Air Force aircraft cargo loader. He was incredibly polite, he tipped the staff, never once lost his temper, smoked Raleighs, and drank bourbon. But who actually fit this exact mold? Well, when we weigh the FBI's top suspects against this profile, you start to see why every single promising lead ultimately hit a brick wall. Take Richard McCoy Jr., for instance. He staged a copycat 727 hijacking just months later in 1972, jumping out over Utah with $500,000. He survived, but got caught pretty quickly. The flight attendants, however, looked at McCoy and confirmed he looked absolutely nothing like Cooper. Then you have Robert Rackstraw, a Vietnam vet and pilot who closely resembled the FBI sketches and had a pretty extensive criminal record. Despite intense media speculation over the years, the FBI ultimately had to eliminate him. Why? Because there was zero direct physical evidence tying him to the plane. The ghost remained uncaptured. And that brings us to Section 5, Changing Aviation Security Forever, the Ultimate Legacy. This is absolutely crucial to understand. Since the FBI could never capture D.B. Cooper, the only way to resolve this massive vulnerability in the airline industry was a sweeping, permanent overhaul of how we all fly. You see, because of Cooper and the terrifying wave of 15 copycat hijackers that immediately followed his stunt in 1972, the carefree days of air travel just vanished overnight. Think about it. Before Cooper, you could literally walk onto a commercial plane carrying a briefcase full of dynamite and nobody would bat an eye. But by 1973, the FAA mandated universal physical baggage inspections. Metal detectors were abruptly installed at every single airport. If you bought a ticket on the day of travel using cash, which is exactly what Cooper did, you were automatically flagged for additional scrutiny. On top of that, peepholes were mandated in all cockpit doors so pilots could assess threats in the cabin without ever having to open the door. But they didn't just change the airport protocols. They literally had to physically modify the airplanes themselves. Enter the Cooper vein. The FAA ordered that every single Boeing 727 be retrofitted with this spring-loaded aerodynamic device on the exterior of the plane. When the plane is on the ground, the stairs work normally, but once that plane is up in the air, the wind pushes the Cooper vane into a locked position. It physically neutralizes the exact exploit Cooper used to make his daring escape. I mean, he found a mechanical loophole, and the industry had to invent a literal piece of metal named after him just to close it. So as we wrap up this explainer, we are left pondering the ultimate cold case mystery. In 2016, the FBI officially suspended their active investigation into D.B. Cooper. His identity remains completely unknown to this day. Did he plunge to a freezing death in the dark forests of Washington? Or did he actually survive his legendary jump, walking away with the cash, living just long enough to witness the global aviation security revolution that he alone started? What do you think?